Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Only You, podcast made to talk about the decision to have an only child, the stigma surrounding it, and stories and anecdotes from people who've lived it. I'm Jess.
I'm Pierce.
And we're here today with our first ever mini episode.
We're back.
Yes, we are.
Episode 4, mini episode number 1.
We're only 4 episodes in, and we're already shaking it up.
Ooh. Throwing him a curveball. I like it.
So, yeah.
Okay.
I had an amazing interview earlier. I'm feeling really empowered by it. I'm feeling really even more sure of myself and confident from it. It's amazing how a conversation with a strong, a little bit more experienced person can really just make you feel a lot better.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So this interview, Jess did solo. So before we get into it, I just wanted to say these mini episodes, we will be alternating weeks. We'll have a full episode one week, and then the following week we'll have a mini episode. And it's not always going to be an interview. Sometimes you'll find interviews in our full episodes. But we also have some pretty cool ideas for what we'd like to showcase in our mini episodes.
Don't give it all away, though.
Oh, no, it's under
surprise
wraps. It's under wraps.
We've got some pretty cool ideas, you guys.
Stay tuned.
For this one, we did an interview with Amanda of Mom of One and Done, which is an Instagram account. It's Mom of the number 1 and Done. She posts really funny memes, really funny jokes from other people.
I like a good joke.
Oh yeah, she's funny. And she's kind of created this really amazing community of Moms of One and Done. So if you're on Instagram, definitely give her a follow. We're going to plug anywhere that you can follow her in the show notes below. And I think we're going to roll it. After the interview, Pierce and I will chat a little bit about some stuff that we learned. But really, we just want you all to hear a little bit from Amanda.
Sounds good.
Let's hear it.
My name is Amanda P. I have an account called Mom of One and Done, and I am 35. I have a 6-year-old daughter who is sneaking in right now. And she knows she shouldn't be, and a husband, and we live in Pennsylvania. So
Right on.
That's
Cool.
That's us. Yeah.
So my first question, of course, is what led you to being one and done?
So I chose to be one and done because of multiple reasons. The number one was I had undiagnosed postpartum depression and anxiety, and it really took a huge toll on me and my mental stability. We didn't know. We didn't understand. We weren't vocal about it. So it was a real struggle for both me and my husband. And I just couldn't see myself going through that again. So pregnancy was not difficult. I just didn't enjoy being pregnant. Like, I was never someone who was like, oh, the glow. And, I love feeling it growing inside of me. Like, no, it was gross. I hated it.
Yeah.
I just really was uncomfortable the whole time. But throughout the pregnancy, we bought like all gender neutral stuff because it was like, okay, well, we should just get gender neutral, in case the next one's not a girl. Like, because I feel like we were programmed to have that kind of mindset. Yeah. And then the reality hit of how difficult it was. Also, so when my daughter was born, I wasn't producing, and, breastfeeding is such a big thing. And I just felt horrible that I could not produce. And, that also had something to do with the postpartum depression and stuff like that. So it was just kind of that, little pieces here and there that came together that it was just like, yeah, this is not something I can do again. So that's my decision.
I must tell you, from someone who's just barely on the other side of that, I have a 1-year-old, being able to openly say that's your reason is the most powerful thing to hear. Because for a lot of people, they feel like they have to have a medical excuse, or they actually physically can't have another child. So just saying my mental health won't allow it. I'm prioritizing it. I want to be here in the moment with her. is so important, I think, for my listeners to hear. We just did an episode called Mental Health Matters because it really, really does. So
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And it also took a toll on my marriage. You know, it took a toll on my husband. It took a toll on our friends and family because I just was not myself and I didn't know what was going on. I didn't educate myself enough about the mental health aspect of things. And I had anxiety before I got pregnant. So it never manifested the way that it did with postpartum. So
wow. Yeah. That's really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And so she's 6. Is that what you said?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she'll be 7 in December.
How does she feel about it? About being one and done?
Yeah, she, you know, I've owned it throughout her whole life. And we have a lot of really close friends that have children that are her age. So I don't think she ever really feels like she's totally missing out. I think she would love to have a sibling, but I try to explain to her, I give her the silver linings, you know what I mean? So you don't have to share your toys and you don't have to share a bedroom and, you know, we get to spend more time with just you and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Especially at a, 6-year-old level. So
yeah,
it's just trying to, curve the
redirect, right?
exactly. Redirect. So,
did you grow up with siblings?
So my story is a little bit unique. I am the youngest of 3. My brother is significantly older than me, like to the point where I really don't know the specific age. I feel like he might be 18 years older than me. Wow. And my sister is 10 years older than me.
Okay.
So by the time I was 7, they were both out of the house. So I really was pretty much raised as an only child, because they never lived around us.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. But my best friend growing up, lived like 3 houses down from me and she was an only child. So we kind of grew up together. We're actually still best friends. And, we both live sort of close by and our daughters are very close in age. And so that dynamic is still there. And it's always been weird to me, with the stigma that goes in line with a lot of only children, because my best friend has never fit that bill. So,
yeah, totally.
And I don't know if my daughter will or not, but like I said, it's just, we grew up together like sisters, but she's, biologically she's not. But
yeah. I mean, all the stereotypes that I've read about only children, they've never applied to the only children that I know. It's really just how they're portrayed in movies and TV.
Yeah.
I have never met an only child who's ridiculously spoiled or bratty or selfish or anything like that. So I don't really understand why there's such a negative connotation to it. It really baffles me.
Right. Well, and I think some of that has to do with the changing times too.
Yeah.
I think that, when we were kids growing up, when I saw, Angelica from Rugrats, that was amazing to me. But I think that having one child has become a little bit more acceptable in society, where I don't think that was ever the case, up until more recent than not. But
yeah, that's funny you say Angelica. Hello, she's welcome. Oh, is that one?
No, it's the dog. Oh. This is Fenway.
Hello. Oh my gosh, he's very cute. It's funny you say Angelica, because in our first episode we compared Angelica to Arnold from Hey Arnold. And we were like, all right, so these are both only children. They're portrayed so differently. Is it a male versus female issue? Also there's basically what we discovered is that Angelica's parents were one and done by choice. Her mom was like a high level business executive or whatever. And Arnold was not. His parents went to go save the world or something. And so it's almost like people who don't have the choice, their kids are treated better in in movies and TV, but people who do it for themselves are treated as selfish in movies and TV. And we were just talking about how unfair that is.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. It's just, I think it's easier to say that it's selfish when you're saying it's because of your own personal preference or your own personal choices, as opposed to when it's not your choice. And, selfish people are typically very, I'm too good for this. And, that's it. It just all falls in line with the stigmas, and this stigma plays off that stigma. And, it just rolls into this package. And I had done some reading about, that the other side of it, where they say that only children are isolated and they don't know how to interact with other people. And, they're very recluse. That was all untrue. Like all of that was just 100% fabricated. There was no scientific evidence to back it up. But that is something that people will say. And it's funny because I actually listened to your first episode. And when you were doing that section with your husband, where you were saying like, okay, well, if I say this, what's your first thought?
Right.
And I was right on target with everything he was saying. And it was like, I think the first thing he said was spoiled. Like when you say only child, what is the first thing that comes to your mind? And it's spoiled. That's the first thing that comes to my mind, Bud, you gotta stop. I know.
He's cute.
Sorry. So yeah, it's crazy. And I think that stigmas are there for a reason. I think that stereotypes are there for a reason sometimes. That means that there's a collective amount of only children that were absolutely spoiled and were selfish and were Angelicas. But it's just making that a little less negative, really.
Mm-hmm. We're gonna try to do an episode in the future that talks about the historic implications, not only in America but worldwide, why some societies had only children and they were like a good thing, and then other societies wanted 10 children or something.
Mm-hmm.
So for a lot of us, for me at least, both sides of my grandparents had like 10 siblings.
Mm-hmm.
And I know birth control wasn't as much of a thing or whatever, but there was definitely a cultural thing for a long time where you just have as many kids as you can possibly have. But now that we know a little bit more about, I don't know, the detriment of having overpopulation for the environment.
Yeah.
And we're all sort of having children later in life. And so, women aren't really able to have 10 and also still have a career and do all the things in life that they want to do. There's just so many different reasons that people are deciding to have only one.
Right.
Hopefully that stigma will change, that stereotype will change a little bit. Like I'd love to see a TV show that's about an only child that's really adventurous, that explores the world,
Yeah, that would be great.
Hopefully that'll come out. So my next question is, do you have any wisdom to give other one and done parents, specifically ones who are newer like myself, like a little bit further down the road where you're at?
I think part of being an only child parent is that you are experiencing the first and the last at the same time, right? So that's something that I have always struggled with. And I think that if you just try to take a step back and just be in the moment as much as possible, when it's first steps, when it's, first day of school, when it's first day of daycare, things like that, first sleepover, and just try to really relish that. That's my wisdom. And my second piece of, I don't want to call it wisdom, it's just my own personal preference.
Sure.
I do think that a lot of people tend to, especially only child parents, tend to think that we need to play with our kids all the time. And that's not the case.
Yeah.
It's really hard. And I still to this day get asked do you play well with your kid? No, I don't, because I'm 35 and she's 6. I don't like playing. That's not my thing. We do things together, we'll do chalk or we'll play games, but I think that if you feel that you need to be there entertaining them at all times, you're making them a little bit more reliable on yourself or on you, not on yourself, on you. I think independent play is major. And I think that when you're in a house, so my best friend, going back to her, she has 2 daughters. She has one that is, she'll be 9, and then her other daughter will be 7 as well. And when we go over to play, it's just go play, right. That's what we tell them, go play. There's no guilt in a parent with 2 children saying, go play, if you have 2 children in your family. So I don't get why there needs to be guilt for an only child. If you're like, go play in your room, go read a book, go. That needs to, that is part of, I think it's an ingrained thing in us that we just want to be there and we want to be helpful. But, there is a line where I think it's easier to cross that line if you are an only child parent versus a parent of multiples. Yeah. The line being, like playing or having them be completely dependent on you to play with them at all times. Mm-hmm. It's not realistic.
Totally. I mean, I grew up with siblings, but I played solo a lot mm-hmm. because my siblings weren't into the same stuff I was.
Right. So, and I will say too, different? Like, especially now, so my daughter's in 1st grade, and she's actually doing full face-to-face school. And because of how they aren't allowed to share things like they were before, the fact that she knows how to independent play is really helpful to her, where some of these other kids that have other, siblings that they were able to entertain or keep entertained or whatever, it's a little bit hard. It was a harder adjustment for them, I think, right. to do the independent play. So, right. There's definite perks to it.
Well, that's cool. It sounds like you're trying to raise a really independent person and somebody who doesn't have to always be, entertained by you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I don't have the patience to entertain her all the time. And really, my daughter is a force. Like, she's just like, she is like the sun. Do you know what I mean? Like, people mm-hmm. gravitate to her. She has a huge personality, which is great most of the time and very daunting other times because it's hard to rein that in. But I'm proud of her, and I'm proud of her independence, and I'm proud of her tenacious ways.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
That's so cool. So my next question is, does mom culture ever feel different for you or exclusionary? Like, basically, I asked this question because sometimes when I'm reading other meme pages or whatever about moms, mm-hmm. it's sort of like all these kids. It's always mm-hmm. about their multiple children or their very mm-hmm. busy life or all of these other things that I don't totally relate to. Do you ever feel like mom culture doesn't see you as much?
That's actually why I started my page. That's 100% why I started my page, was because I try to be authentic, and I wanted to share memes about parenting, but everything said children or kids or, and I couldn't find anything that just pertained to one kid. And so what I did was I started searching on Instagram, like only child memes or whatever. And the only things that came up were really nasty, mean things about only children. And it wasn't funny. And so I just said, okay, well, I guess I'm just going to make them myself. And that's, so yes, I did feel that way before. I don't feel that way as much anymore now, because I think the other thing too is a lot of the people that have come on to the scene for Instagram, at least, there are a lot of us that are one and done, and they feel much more comfortable owning that. So there are some other people out there that, are starting to kind of go in that direction as well. Not nearly as much as I do, but
right. There's definitely a community, it seems like. I mm-hmm. definitely like, I'm hearing feedback from the podcast of people being like, I needed a podcast like this. Nobody mm-hmm. talks about it. Even the influencers that I see that have an only child don't really want to make a statement about it. They just do. And it's sort of implied, but they're not mm-hmm. owning it in the same way that like maybe boy moms, soccer moms, all these different sort of like types of moms own it.
Well, and I will say too, Jess, that like, it's a lot different, like being in the mom culture. It's a lot different with each age that you go into. So you're mm-hmm. in that age bracket right now where, a lot of the toddler jokes don't really pertain to you yet. But once, your kid hits the age of 2 or 3, you know, that's when you're going to be like, oh my gosh, that's my kid, you know? So it definitely, the more you go along, you'll start to feel much more included once you get into those kinds of phases.
Sure. I think it's also hard at this age because you're seeing everybody else on your feed celebrating their second pregnancies, or it's like the big brother, little sister signs and stuff like that. And you just sort of have to quickly grieve for that experience, never being able to have it and move on. But it's sort of draining to see that all day long.
Yeah.
Or seeing the 2 kids playing together. And of course, like I celebrate all family sizes, of course. But like you said, everything for me is the first and last time. So there are a lot of experiences that I'm just not going to be able to have. Right.
Well, and like I said, I mean, I think with anything, I always try to find like a silver lining and try to look at the positive of things. So because I think that if mom guilt is real in every aspect of the mom life. So why add more mom guilt onto yourself that doesn't need to be there? You know, it's about being happy for that person. Congratulations. I'm so happy I don't have to deal with breastfeeding. I'm so happy I don't have to deal with sciatic pain. I'm so happy I don't have to go through another traumatizing birth experience, you know, like whatever it is. Just think about that and focus on your family. And that's what I try to do. So that's
awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
So the next one is there any only child in pop culture that you can think of that we should cover? At first I thought of Matilda, but then I realized she had a brother.
She's not. Yeah.
So do you have any suggestions?
Now I have to try and think of an only child character.
It's hard, right?
I feel like I know some. I feel like Angelica would always be my go-to.
Mm-hmm. She was the first one on my mind.
Yeah. Was Sabrina the Teenage Witch? Was she an only child?
I don't know. I'm going to look it up. I'll take that as your suggestion.
I don't want to get her confused with Clarissa, because we know
she
Clarissa
definitely had
Ferguson.
A brother.
Yeah.
I think that you're right. She lived with her 2 aunts and she had her cat, but I think you're absolutely right. I think that Sabrina would be such a fun one to do. I love that show.
Yeah. I think she was an only child.
Great.
Yeah. And then I'm also trying to think like Pepper Ann. Do you remember that cartoon?
Oh, I remember Pepper Ann. I thought she had a brother.
She may have.
There's usually, when there's a female protagonist, there's usually an annoying brother.
Right. What about Skeeter from
Doug?
Yeah.
He was the best friend, right?
Yeah. The blue one.
Yeah. All right.
I'll look that up too. Right now.
No, pretty much every single one of our pop cultures have been 90s.
I'm like,
that's all we know.
Back to Nick at Night.
I'll do one from a different era someday, but right now we're happy in the late 90s, early 2000s.
Awesome. Perfect. Nailed it.
Those are great suggestions.
Yeah.
All right. So in your opinion, let's hear number 1 benefit and number 1 drawback of being one and done.
Number 1 benefit would be the financial end of things. I think really just being able to have more of a handle on finances and not have that stress. I'm not kidding you. When anyone ever tells me that they're pregnant, the first thing I always think of is like, how do you afford that? How do you afford a 3rd child or a 4th child? Like, it doesn't compute. But I would say that would probably be the number 1. And the number 1 downfall is the bittersweetness of it, that, it is first and last. And sometimes that can take a toll, like we've been talking about.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's part of the territory, you gotta take what you get. So
yeah, I mean, I love that you said that. It's something I've never even thought about. But last night I was holding my daughter because I still rock her to sleep because we just haven't gotten to the point where we can lay her down and have her fall asleep by herself. That seems like magic to me. I've never been able to do it.
It's so hard.
I'm rocking her to sleep and she's asleep in my arms. And I sort of thought to myself, like, she's never going to be this exact age again. You know, I'm never going to have this exact cuddly little baby ever again because tomorrow she'll be a day older. And so I just sort of sat there for a while and held her and smelled her, you know, because she's in that very cuddly stage. Yeah. And it's so true. You know, there's going to be a day where I don't have to rock her to sleep anymore. And I'm going to put her down in her crib. And I'm not going to have another baby to do that with. So it is bittersweet. I do kind of have to savor every moment. It makes me very emotional sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. And someone once told me, like, whenever your kid asks you to pick them up, now this is not like when they're stage 5 clingers, though. This is just like when you're out and they're like, pick me up. Someone has told me, or I've read or something, I don't know, but it was like, don't ever say no, because one day they're going to be too heavy for you to pick them up. Aww. So even now, like, she's 6 and I still like use my knee and like hoist her up as much as I can. Just because I know, like, probably in 2 to 4 years, she's going to hate my guts. And, you know, cause she's pretty, my mom likes to say that my daughter has an old soul. She's just a very, not in like a wisdom way, in like a know-it-all sassafras.
Okay.
Like, yep. Yeah. That's my daughter.
That's one of the stereotypes I see about only children, though, is wise beyond their years, because they get parent time and they get adult time more so than a lot of, you know, kids with a bunch of siblings do. They just hang around adults. So they pick things up and they can just be really, really socially smart. You know, they're like on top of it. They can hold a conversation really early in life. I don't know. I wish those stereotypes were more common.
I agree.
Like, for the last episode, we did Bobby Hill, you know, King of the Hill. And he's sort of an old soul in the show. Is. You know, we talked about in one episode, he was like really into trimming roses or growing roses or something with all the old ladies around him and stuff. And I think that show does a great job of showcasing an only child that's just being like really comfortable in their own skin, really unique, like just a big personality.
Yeah.
I appreciated it.
Yeah. Well, good. I do like that. I'll have to listen to that episode.
The last one is there anything you want to add, anything you want to plug, or anything we didn't cover?
I mean, I always like to plug my Instagram page, and that's Mom of Number One and Done. I am working with a company to do some merch coming up, probably before the holidays. So that'll be fun. It's just shirts. It's nothing major.
That sounds awesome. I'd love to wear a shirt.
Yeah. Well, I'll have them available.
I can't wait.
I don't really have that much going on right now. Just kind of doing my own thing. And I really do love that my page has turned into more than a meme page. It is, I feel like my page is definitely a community. And when I started it, that was never, everything that has transpired is never what I expected. I just really wanted to make people laugh and be authentic to that I have one child, and thought maybe some people would like that. But
that's amazing.
It's crazy. It's crazy, but it's great. And I love the friendships that I've made, and I love the connections that I've made. So yeah, there's a lot of really kick-ass one and done people out there. And I think that the more supportive of each other that we can be, the better. And I think that one of my biggest things is that I think sometimes we're harder on ourselves than other parents are, like parents of multiples are on us. I think that we just try to minimize, not all the time, but I recently did a TikTok video and I said, like, parents of only children need to stop minimizing the difficulty of parenting just because you have one child. And what I mean by that is that if you have a friend that has 3 kids, as a parent with an only child, I personally will like stop myself from complaining about the daily trials and tribulations, because I'm like, who am I to complain about this when they have it, you know, times 3?
Right.
But it shouldn't be that way. Like, moms connect on a mom level, no matter how many kids you have. That's something that I want to see more of from our community, is just to be more comfortable with the fact that we have chosen or not chosen to only have one child. and stop being so hard on ourselves. Because like I said, mom guilt is everywhere, and that is serious. And if we don't have to, put that on ourselves, then why do it?
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much for saying that.
Yeah.
Well, again, thank you for coming on the show. I
Thanks for
appreciate
having
it. I think our listeners are going to learn a lot from just your confidence in who you are and what you've decided to do. I really appreciate, as an anxiety sufferer myself, you being so open and honest about that. It means the world to me, and I'm sure a lot of other people like me. So thanks.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And thanks for having me on and for, running this platform for podcasts. I was so excited when you reached out to me. I was like, absolutely, sign me up. Let's do this.
That's awesome. All right. Well, I'd love to have you on again in the future.
Yeah, sounds great.
Sometime, I don't know, after the holidays or something, we'll set it up again.
Sounds good.
Okay. So good to meet you.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. We are back. Jess, that was amazing.
Thank you. I thought it was pretty good, right?
Amanda, that was amazing.
Amanda, you're amazing.
It was super good. Really enjoyed that. Very informative. You guys sounded like your best buds.
Well, stay tuned for me and Amanda's podcast. Just kidding.
Oh.
Yeah, she was really cool to talk to. It's nice to talk to other one and done parents for sure, but it's even a little bit cooler to talk to people a little bit further down the line from us. And she's so confident and self-assured about the decision she's made. It's just really refreshing to talk to her.
Yeah, really cool to hear her. She had a lot of good points, a lot of great advice that I know we will personally be taking to heart. We hope she really helped out some of our listeners out there too.
Yeah, definitely. Pierce, what was like a part that you liked?
I really enjoyed her advice about not trying to overcompensate, for your only child. Like she said, a lot of parents out there might feel like they have to give their child extra playtime,
right?
Extra attention because they might not have, they lack that sibling.
Right.
So that was really cool. That was something I hadn't really thought about. So thank you, Amanda.
Yeah. And when she was like, I'm 35, you're 6. We don't like the same stuff.
Yeah, totally.
I can definitely see myself telling Penny something similar now that I sort of have the confidence to do so. You're like, dude, you're 1. This book is boring.
I've read this book like 30 times. Can we not read anymore?
Yeah. And of course, it's like, you don't just say no to everything, obviously.
Yeah.
But you kind of have to turn off that guilt in the back of your mind that's saying, no, it's 100% up to you to be your child's playmate all day, every day.
Yeah.
Because you're kind of doing them a disservice by not teaching them how to play independently,
Right. There was so much great information in that podcast, but if you had to pick something that was your favorite part about it, what would you pick?
There was a part in the interview where she talked about how parents of only children, you should savor every moment because you won't really get a chance to do it again.
It's your first and your last.
Exactly. And I was telling her about rocking Penny and how I can't feel guilty by, for not doing everything exactly by the book. Like the books all say that she shouldn't be rocked to sleep at this age or whatever, because she's never going to be that tiny baby again.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just nice to be able to remind myself that I should be so much more present. I should just be enjoying every minute of this when I can, because I won't have that second one to enjoy it with again.
Right.
And it's very bittersweet. And I just thought her take on that was really wise.
Yeah, very solid advice.
Yeah. It was a good interview. Like I said, it was cathartic and meant a lot to me to be able to talk to someone like her. So I'm really glad that she came on the show. Amanda, you're awesome. Yeah, I think that went great. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to our first mini episode.
Yeah, we hope to have more like it. The interviews, and as we said before, we'll maybe have some fun games or something.
Yeah.
Who knows?
And remember, for next week's full-length episode, we're asking people to email in about ways that they create a community for their children. So in this interview, Amanda talks about having her best friend growing up. We want to hear a little bit about how parents of only children or only children themselves facilitated creating a community around them.
A family that they choose.
The family they choose, exactly. So yeah, be sure to email those stories in to onlyyoupod@gmail.com. You can also message us on our Instagram at onlyyouPodcast. You can go to our Facebook page, Only You, a One and Done podcast. Or any other way you find us, feel free to message us that way.
There are quite a few ways to reach us now. Yeah. We're out there.
Absolutely. So yeah, we'll be back next Monday with a full-length episode. And another thank you to Amanda from Mom of One and Done. That one is the number 1, not spelled out, on Instagram. Definitely go follow her. She's really, really funny.
Super cool.
And as always, thank you so much for listening, and hopefully we'll talk soon.
Toodles.